Hey everybody, so today we're going to talk about the Mandela effect. I have a little update to a video that I did previously about the VHS that I got, Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks, and the Mandela effect and some quotes from the movie. And I just kind of like to talk about a few things and what I actually think. I mean, for about the last 12 months, I've been interested in this and kind of gave it a lot of thought during that time and kind of needed to look at everything in a different way versus looking at content that basically is being reverberated by multiple people, and it almost ends up becoming like a game of telephone. So, in a few things that I was thinking about, well, I guess first off, it is fascinating though some of the things that people have come up with, like the hyperdimensional travel, where we're basically hopping timelines, like a train basically hops tracks on a rail system, basically where our reality is being edited in some fashion, either by humans or through some artificial intelligence. Basically, or we're all dead. That's another one that's pretty fascinating, and we ended up being transported somehow into another timeline. CERN is basically orchestrating everything. So, a few things though that I just couldn't kind of wrap my mind around was what's the actual evidence that we have for these things changing? We have people doing he said, she said. Everyone's trying to say this is what I remember. So what I thought of, let me go to a thrift store. Let me pick out some VHS tapes that might be able to help, kind of show me hardcore evidence of what actually took place during that time period, instead of listening to what other people had to say about it. So I know a lot of people will say like, oh, well, I remember in the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come, is the iconic quote. And then, I mean, oh, it was edited, the reality is now different, now it's if you build it, he will come. But no, that's actually been the quote the entire time. It's even written here on the back of the VHS cover. Now this is just the cover for the VHS movie Field of Dreams. I mean, there's the ISBN. You can look this up for yourself. But yeah, got this from a thrift store. I mean, it's a snapshot in time, and it's showing you the exact quote from the movie. I mean, I understand some people remember this differently, but this is the quote. I mean, whether reality's been edited, it doesn't really matter, because this is what exists now as evidence and a snapshot from the past of what exists and what did exist then. I mean, that's Field of Dreams. And a lot of people say, this is one of the biggest ones that people discussed was Field of Dreams. Or like Pokemon, where Pikachu basically had a black tip of his tail. Now, this was the first Pokemon VHS tape I picked up, and it was absolutely perfect. Because look at this picture. How could one not get confused that Pikachu's tail has a black tip on it? Look at this. Look at this scene. Well, first off, the ears have a black tip on it. Okay, the tail does have a brown spot towards the tip that connects to the body. And how about this tail right here, for example? The tip does have a black tip, basically, if you look at this picture. And all these Pikachus in the back, even looks like they even have kind of a black tip when you look at it, because the outline is so thick. It does kind of give the illusion that he does have a black tail. And even right here on the side image, look, the way the ear has the black tip, it almost looks like it like runs into the tail when you initially look at that. So off an initial imprint, when you just look at these types of imagery, in your mind it could actually imprint something that's a false memory, or something where your mind might have filled in the gap through some kind of an assumption, and it creates this type of memory in your mind, when in fact it actually didn't, because Pikachu doesn't have a black tip on his tail. So I mean, this is just another example of ways that false memories can be imprinted, because when you have situations like this where, I mean, literally the tip of this ear is over the tail, the tip of this ear is over the tail. In a lot of scenes like this, you can have imagery that could basically give you a false imprint of the tail having a black tip on it. And that could be something where it's like, well, I swear that I know it was like that. But yeah, your mind might have created that memory, and it might have happened to multiple people, because a lot of people experience the same types of media and the same types of exposure to this media. So a lot of people, of course, are going to experience the same thing, and we're all exposing ourselves to these types of stimulus and this types of entertainment. So of course it's going to happen to a lot of people, and then there's a collective and everyone experiences the same thing, when in reality it was just the media that you were getting exposed to that actually made you have the false memory and the false imprint, that Pikachu has a tip on its tail. Same thing with Field of Dreams. I mean, even Tom Hanks's Forrest Gump. A lot of people said, the quote about life is like a box of chocolates. Well, you got it right there. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. That's what his mother said to him. So when he was speaking in past tense, he used was because she no longer existed. But yeah, a lot of people like to basically false remember that as well. That is the quote. Yeah, because that's what his mom used to say. That's the quote. Life is, not was. But it was because he's explaining it for his mom. He's not. She used to say is. He says was because he's explaining it by telling a story. And I mean, the quote's right there on the back of the box. Should be no confusion there. And here you even see his mom standing next to him in the scene. So, Forrest Gump, that's another one. And the Bible is another big one. Everyone says it's like the Bible's being edited, or the Bible's being changed in some fashion. Well, I mean, the Bible is being rewritten by multiple different people. I know there's certain standards that it has to go through, but I mean, again, some of the words in here have different meanings nowadays from when it was originally interpreted and originally put to paper. I mean, obviously, if it's being reprinted exactly the same, over time, those words are going to change. The wordage is going to change for the actual definition for that word. But a good example is the lion and the lamb. So a lot of people say, well, Isaiah, 11:6, it says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and they're saying, well, that's different. That used to say the lion and the lamb. But really, what they're referring to is, Revelations 5:5? 5:5, where it actually, right here is the actual quote, and I'll hold this up. Right here is the actual quote. The lion of the tribe of Judah and the lamb. They're both referring to Jesus as the same thing. That's the lion and the lamb. A lot of people like to say, well, they changed it. No, they didn't. You're just referring to a different passage in a book of passages where there could be different interpretations to most of this stuff. In regards to something like this, where it's like, 420 seats, 420 elders. Where does it say? It says it again down here. 420 elders again. 420 didn't have the meaning that it has today. Okay, and this is a really good example because this is something that came out recently, where 420, I guess, was a bunch of kids. They came together, and that's when they would participate in consuming cannabis, specifically at 4 o'clock and 20 minutes after 4. That didn't mean anything back in the day. That just happened to be 420 is the number. So you can't look at this and be like, oh, the people that did this, knew what they were doing. No, they didn't, because this is something that was created after this book was printed and was originally created. The word has these sequence of three words or three numbers basically has a new meaning now. So this is a great example of what I was just basically saying in regards to things being interpreted wrong or being misremembered because their brain filled in the gaps in regards to what they were actually, perceiving, what kind of an input they were having, whether it was reading a book, whether it was watching a movie, whether it was listening to music. Those inputs have to go through the mind, and the mind is probably going to be the path of least resistance in regards to things being changed. It being a spell, Mandela effect being a spell, some kind of psy-op, some kind of an effect of artificial intelligence. It's easier for me to wrap my mind around the fact that the mind is the core issue to these memories being imprinted the way that they are, and the way that most people probably get exposed to the same types of inputs like food, media, consumer products. A lot of people are consuming the same things. So obviously there's going to be a lot of people that experience the same things as a result of consuming those particular products. Now, whether those products be visual, auditory, or taste, or touch, or however it is, however they get input into their body to get imprinted for memory, that I think is going to be the pivoting point into these interpretations being misremembered. And there is evidence out there. I mean, again, a thrift store, fine. I mean, these were less than $1 each, and I was able to basically find the evidence that I needed to put everything together to be like, what's really going on here, and objectively look at things and say, what actually is the underlying issue here. I mean, it could be a spell, it could be some kind of psy-op, the way that the information was spread, because I do find it very interesting that it kind of went, it got introduced, and then all of a sudden it became like a wildfire. It took off, and it's very interesting how things spread and how information gets perceived very fast once someone thinks that they might have experienced the same thing. Because a lot of people want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of a collective. They want to be in the group that is experiencing this particular thing. And then all these sects blew off, the sects of different people who basically are like, oh, I'm from this timeline, I'm from this time. I mean, you got people choosing which timeline they're from now. Now, I'm not disputing, quantum physics and different types of dimensions and things on quantum levels. I'm not disputing any of that, but what I am saying is that I think things like this, where you have a good example of how you could misinterpret Pikachu having a black tip on his tail, is a great example of how you can get a mismemory imprint inside your brain. Again, same thing with the quotes from these movies. Star Wars, I mean, I could go on, the list goes on forever. I mean, Luke, I am your father, no, I am your father. James Earl Jones says it this way. Maybe he's making the same mistake that we are when we actually initially saw that movie and we got misimprinted memories of it, because maybe in our minds it sounded better if he addresses Luke versus him just saying no. And I know a lot of people have done videos on mostly all these topics, but I really wanted to give it some time before I actually did a follow-up video on these Mandela effect topics, and I just found it really interesting how a lot of these science fiction or these very fantastical type situations came out, and it did get a lot of people views on YouTube. I mean, it definitely did for a number of months right there. Probably towards last fall it was pretty hot from like 2013 to pretty much last fall, and then right after the holiday season, it pretty much dumped right off. Not a lot of people making videos on it, but it was very interesting that it kind of took off like a wildfire, which is why I suggested that maybe it was some sort of psy-op or some kind of a spell or something that was instituted upon the masses through either some kind of social media project or some kind of art form. I really couldn't explain what it actually is without getting to the bottom of that. But the facts of these things that were being discussed and were being spread like wildfire, there is got to be an explanation that is a little bit easier than all these different fantastical situations that exist. As exciting as it might be to think about, like being some kind of dimensional traveler, some kind of dimensional shifter, or like being some kind of hyperdimensional traveler, I think we should really be focusing on the types of factual information that we do have, and the evidence is basically all around us for us to be able to see our past and what exactly happened in the past, and to re-imprint those memories in the correct fashion back into your head by rewatching a movie that you might think you remembered it one way. We'll rewatch it, and if it's a different way, well, then maybe you remembered it wrong, and maybe the video didn't get edited, and that we're not in a different reality, that maybe you just remember it wrong initially when you first originally watched the film or experienced whatever input that you had. So I really hope that this video kind of helps shed some light on this topic, because it's led a lot of people astray in regards to what's actually going on and what actually is being represented. A lot of disinformation out there. As if it's presented as fact, it's different than if it's presented as fantasy. If this information is being presented as fantasy, then I can see it existing, but it's being mixed with factual information to be interpreted as facts, and I think it's leading a lot of people astray in regards to the casual person who comes to YouTube and sees this content and immediately thinks that they have experienced the same thing, and then they go on to watch multiple videos on the same topic to try to formulate some kind of connection to this situation, this phenomenon that's happening to a bunch of people. So again, path of least resistance. Do your own research. I mean, literally do your own research. Go look this stuff up. I mean, do the research, collect the data, interpret the results for yourself. I mean, don't just go off the first thing that you see, like especially Isaiah. Don't go right off that because that's the first quote you looked at. Do the research. Is it said multiple times in the Bible? When is it said? How is it worded? Let's go look at that. Let's go read that. Let's interpret the results. Let's make the conclusion of what's going on in the information that we're being presented with. So that's the best advice I can give anybody who's interested in the Mandela effect or has done any research on it themselves and has come to the same conclusion that I have. I literally think it's something that's going on with people's memories, and they're misremembering things that happen. And I think the same thing is happening to a lot of people as a collective. They think that it's a mass phenomenon that's happening to a certain amount of people. I just simply do not believe that is true in regards to the fantastical things that they've come up with. So again, do your own research, interpret your own data that you get, and that's my update on the Mandela effect, and I hope that puts some conclusion to some people's curiosities. Have a great rest of your day.